This morning. Rev Jerry is a certified medium, teacher, and longtime member and resident of the Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp. He is also the president of our Board of Trustees, which is no small feat. Trust me on that. We are very grateful for all the energy and hard work Rev Jerry pours into the camp, so now please join me in a warm welcome for Rev Jerry Moore.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Ooh, I like that. So this morning I would like to talk about enlightenment. And there are many religious and philosophical traditions that speak to that topic. In many people's minds, being enlightened is a superior state of being. It implies someone who has greater knowledge and wisdom, someone who's achieved peace with themselves. It might even bring the thought of a guru who has spent years on the mountaintop contemplating the state of the world and who has gained great insight from hours and hours of meditation. All of these things have a kernel of truth, and you may hear many people talk about different pathways that are possible to achieve enlightenment. And there are many pathways. Some of these traditions just mentioned have a very specific definition of what enlightenment is and how it is achieved. I would like to suggest to you that most of them have a common core, and that core is that enlightenment means to have understanding. It is this core definition I would like to use today. With that thought in mind, my goal is to provide you with ideas on how you can apply a philosophy of an enlightenment, of greater understanding, to your everyday life. You might think of it as everyday enlightenment. Perhaps a good place to start is by saying I do not consider myself fully enlightened. I am not a guru. Maybe a better description would be that I feel I am informed on the subject. I believe becoming enlightened is an ongoing process of trying to put into practice the principles and objectives of what we know. So the concepts I'm about to relay to you are the same ones that I'm trying to put into practice myself, with some successes and, of course, some failures. So let's explore. The first recommendation to be enlightened is don't do something that's unenlightened. So what is an unenlightened behavior? Well, there are many. Some people think that paying attention to caring for the body is an unenlightened behavior. Actually, not paying attention to the physical body is an unenlightened behavior. Our physical body is the platform that our soul uses to observe the creations that we make. If the body is weak, that makes the new creations more challenging. Exercise and nutrition can help maintain our physical body, and it is something of a trade-off. We can despise doing exercise. We may do it anyway because we feel we have to, but the enlightened person understands that it really is a shrewd bargain. We trade a little bit of our time and effort, and we get to use this physical platform with fewer health issues that interfere with our enjoyment of life. Another aspect of the enlightened person is that they understand that polarities exist. Some people think of polarities as stupid is bad, brilliant is good, errors are bad, perfection is good. The enlightened person understands that polarities exist, but they are not absolutes. Instead, they are directions, similar to north and south, left and right, up and down. The enlightened person knows that polarities are useful to be aware of because they identify the direction that they are moving. The enlightened person is always aware of the direction that they are moving. If they are not moving in the desired direction, then they can change it. A truly enlightened person does not look at an error and think it is a bad thing. They look at an error and think of it as a source of expansion. The enlightened person always knows that everything that we have experienced in our life is a good benefit. That includes everything, every single thing, including every bad thing that has ever occurred to you. Benefits and strengthens you so you can create and participate more. Everything that you have experienced adds to you. That includes every scar, every thought, every memory. It's all attitude. What is necessary for true enlightenment is to be able to use the beneficial parts of those experiences, not the non-beneficial ones. And that requires knowing which direction you are moving. Another concept of enlightenment is that one that you've no doubt heard before, and that is everything in moderation. In this life, there are many, many things to experience. The key is to do so in moderation. Once you have experienced something and have realized its usefulness to you, you lose your curiosity for it. You have moderated it, and it is time to move on to the next thing. Too much of almost anything is too much. The enlightened person realizes that participation itself is a moderation, and it moderates their behavior. They do not seek to moderate someone else's behavior. The enlightened person knows that whatever they know is perfectly fine for them. Whatever someone else knows is their business until you want it to be yours. And whatever you know is your business until someone else wants it to be theirs. The enlightened person focuses on a simple acceptance of their own existence. The enlightened person will deal with something that is theirs as soon as they realize it is theirs. You may notice that the enlightened people appear to be less troubled by the issues of life. That is because they don't wait for life to tell them how it should be. They tell life how they want to live it. Let's say you have bills to pay. As you go through the bills, you start thinking, there are way too many bills. I'm not sure I have enough money to pay all these bills. The enlightened person sees it as their issue. The bills are there because there was a commitment to pay them at one time. Because it is their issue, they find a way to pay them. Perhaps they rearrange what they spend money on so they can pay down the amount due faster. It is an expression of, this is the path I take. It's the path I choose. Doing that, you start eliminating the attitude of, I am the victim. It helps build strength of character. Problems start evaporating because of participation. Saying, I can't pay my bills does not allow for change. It is absolute. It does not allow for anything different. The enlightened person looks at it a little bit differently. Every time you say, I can't, you are really saying, I won't. So therefore, if you can say, I won't, then you can also say, I will. I will is a very powerful statement. It is a promise to participate. Here's an extreme example. Let's say someone were to come up to you and say, I represent a committee, and we believe that you are a candidate to compete in the next Olympics. That might look like, I can't do that. On the other hand, you might change it to an understanding that it is really, I won't, instead. You might look at that proposal that's made to you, and it would be easy to say, I won't be doing that. I won't be doing that because the effort and the strain and the stress is more than I want to do. So I won't be doing that. Instead of thinking of yourself as a failure, that you can't do something, you start thinking of yourself as a decision maker that says, I choose not to do that. The sooner you can get to I won't rather than I can't, the sooner you get out of being a victim of life. So every time you say to yourself, I can't, convert it to I won't. And you will have a greater sense of purpose about whatever it is that you are doing. This works because the I won't comes from an internal decision-making place, the enlightenment place where you can make decisions about how you will live your life. The I can't is a response to an external requirement, which we do not feel we can control. Take control, own it, and make the decision for yourself by using I won't. In making such decisions, it often entails balancing your own self-interest with your effect on others. It would not be advisable to ignore our effect on others, and it would also be unwise to regard the external world too highly and ignore its impact on you. Once again, it's a matter of moderation. It is common to think in terms of being either selfish or selfless to some extent. The enlightened person attempts to moderate each of these, to understand the impact that they have is as much as possible, but understand that they will have an impact. The enlightened person understands they are not responsible in totality for the impact, but still recognizes the effect. There is nothing wrong about deliberately trying to change the world around you. The problem is usually comes when somebody deliberately changes the world around them and then becomes upset because the world doesn't want to change. That is where it becomes selfish. The other extreme to avoid is excessive selflessness. An example is when someone who performs many chores around the house and then becomes disappointed because others in the household don't seem to appreciate all of the work they've done in return. In their mind, there is an implied agreement. If they do these things, then the others in the house will automatically give them appreciation for doing it. One rule of thumb is that if you do something 3 times, you've made an agreement. It becomes a behavior that others expect you to repeat. If you suddenly stop that behavior, you're probably going to find someone is surprised and objects because it's not the way they thought it was going to be. They thought you were going to continue what you had been doing before. Once it's realized that there's an unexpected agreement, the enlightened person will talk with other people who are impacted and let them know they wish to make a new agreement to set the expectations for what will happen next. That is how you free yourself from having to continue the old behavior. It may be that you say something like, I realize I've done this for quite a while, but it's not because I wanted to, it's because I thought I should. This changes the nature of the agreement. The enlightened person will let others know that they are making the change before making it. Each and every creation that we make is actually a co-creation with some other person or group. We are always interacting with others. Our relationships and how they interact are based on faith and hope. And in this sense, faith is not a religious one. In this case, faith is an unconfirmable belief. And hope is the action that makes that unconfirmable belief more likely to occur. When we interact with others, we change the relationships we have with them because our faith is that the relationship can be different than it is right now. When we create something new, we are having a thought we've never had before, write poetry, sing a song. All of it is adding to the infinite intelligence. Everything that we do, everything we can think, everything that we create adds to that infinite intelligence, and it changes things. It is a different world today than it was yesterday because you are in it, creating and adding to what is. And what you've added changes what possibilities are today and for the future. The world would be different without you. The enlightened person realizes that we change everything just by our existence. But the enlightened person does not take it upon themselves to have the responsibility for all that change. They simply look at it and say, this is what happens when you participate. That means that whenever you participate, something is going to get changed. Don't be surprised when it does. The enlightened person understands it is useful to accept what exists already. It does not need to be recreated exactly as it was. The joy and expansion comes from creating something different, something new. The enlightened person understands that the attempt to do something right causes great frustration. When we are faced with a new situation, it is a common response to try and find a similar situation in our memory that we might use as a way to understand how to move forward with the current situation. So let's talk about our memories. Our memories are records of past events and how we dealt with prior situations. The past is the architect of our future. Your character strengthens because of your life experiences. Accept that strength instead of thinking, I wish it hadn't happened the way it did. Embrace it in a way that says, it happened the way it did, and that's where I can draw my strength. Enlightenment means everything about your past is part of you. Part of you is what you will be in the future too. You're not going to eliminate it. So the enlightened philosophy might be that you take the place that says these experiences are within me. I might as well use it in a beneficial way. It's part of my toolkit. It's unique to me, and no one else knows it except me. So I can use it positively. I can use it in a way that opens things outward. And that opening outward may mean opening up to other possibilities, to do something different than you ever have. You are discovering new territory, so take the joy of that discovery and be amazed by the new things. Taking action is the key, and the first steps are the hardest. What happens is you suddenly realize that you're on an uphill slope or a downhill slope. If you feel that you are in a downhill slope, it's because your passion to participate increases. The enlightened position is on the downhill slope, always. Another key is not making something bigger than you can conquer, but that's a difficult thing. That's generally what your fears do. Your fears amplify something bigger than you can conquer. You start thinking there's too much to learn, the path's too long, there's too much effort. The reality is, if your passion is big enough, the effort is never too much. For the majority of the things that we accomplish, they are joint efforts with others. They are co-creations. So from an enlightened perspective, you can think, as soon as I can get this thing into a sense of us, the quicker I can move ahead. Instead of you having to be the one that has to take every step, maybe there is someone else who already has the skills or knowledge that you don't have and would be willing to participate. When you think of yourself alone, it's easy to think of it as hopeless. You think of it as hopeful if you can allow yourself to think of it as a joint venture, a relationship. So then instead of asking other people what they think of your good idea, you present it to them and tell them that you see they have skills that would be needed to help get it started if they would like to play. You want to give it a try. Tell them you want to see how far we can go with this before we have to give it up. That's a way to conquer the fears. It's avoiding personalizing them and avoiding imagining that they are bigger than they are. Enlightened success is the ability to allow it to not be yours alone. All of these things we've talked about today are part of everyday enlightenment. None of them require that you read a big, long book with terms you may not be familiar with. They do not require you to go into a deep meditation multiple times a week. They do not even require you to go to a mountaintop. What they do require is deliberately challenging your frame of mind as it exists now, and applying a little bit of mental alchemy to change the meaning of what an event means to you to a perspective that is helpful to you instead of restrictive to you. It allows you to control your life instead of feeling that you are tossed around by your life. Words are powerful, especially the words that we use with ourselves. Take advantage of that. Choose your future. I hope that your path to everyday enlightenment is a downhill slope all the way, because that is where the passion lives. Thank you.